Rise Career Exploration is financially supported by listeners like you. Every dollar helps towards future podcast episodes. Click on the link in the show notes or visit us at risecareer.org today. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the show. And remember, together we rise.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome everyone. I'm your host, Corey Alexander, licensed school counselor, author, and entrepreneur. And this is Rise Career Exploration, the podcast, where we interview guests on their professional journeys. Choosing a career can be one of the most difficult decisions of your life. Join me as we interview guests on their professional journeys. You'll find that the twists and turns of career struggles aren't unique to you, and that the path to your dream profession isn't always a straight line. Whether you are a student who wants to learn what it takes to be in a specific career, or just want to hear some great career advice, this podcast is for you. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rise Career Exploration, the podcast. I'm your host, Corey Alexander, and today's special guest is Timothy Hunte, with over 2 decades in the IT field. Mr. Hunte graduated from Virginia State University in Information Systems and Decision Sciences. He's a father, a husband, a man of God, a leadership coach, a speaker and trainer, and he's here to share his journey. Let his journey in IT be your roadmap. What's up, good brother?
How are you, brother? Hold tight. I actually have to just change something because I got this. I see the blurred background, but.
Oh, okay. Sitting on the back deck?
Sitting on the back deck, bro. Just, kind of relaxing and getting some good vibes. Hopefully you can hear me well and everything's good.
Nah, I hear you. We might see some deer in the background or.
You might see a couple of deers. You might see Zeus running around in the backyard, acting a fool. So if you do, please forgive me. But, this is kind of,
Thank you for joining us, man.
Oh, man, listen, I'm so happy and thankful to be here. Obviously, we have so much tenure together, bro. But to be able to add some value to anybody's life who joins, listens to this podcast, it's a great feel. So I'm thankful, brother.
All right, not to waste your time because your time is valuable. I'm gonna jump right into it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So, what led you to pursue this career path, and what experience sparked that interest?
Well, it's funny, as I was thinking about this and going through my childhood, I always realized that there was something special when it came to like technology, right? And going to high school, I realized that there was a tremendous opportunity in technology. At first, I was really involved in engineering. And to be 100% transparent, I'm terrible at math. I'm just keeping it real. I love to count money, but I'm terrible at math. Right? So, so I realized that, there was just this opportunity. I didn't really understand it to that degree, but my mother encouraged me to go to college. And with that, I was like, all right, I want to go to college for technology. I was in high school for technology, four ropes in high school. So it was more just understanding that there was an opportunity. I didn't realize how big the opportunity was.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, my brother, I was like, okay, technology is it for me at this point.
Good. How has the IT industry evolved since you first started your career?
Bro, it's crazy. Back then, and I'm just keeping it real, I might be dating myself, but when I started messing around with computers and, even gaming back in the days, right? We were using like Commodore 64s, right? So it was just one of those things where you look at it now. Obviously the latest craze is AI, right? Artificial intelligence. And it just has created so much of a buzz that I think at the end of the day, it's just really about understanding how much of it right now is like we can't even keep up. We want it so fast now. Everything we want it fast like this, from Alexa to Google Home to the shades that come down in our home. Technology has evolved in a way that has obviously made our lives much better. But obviously there's some trade-offs with that as well. But I would say as it evolves, it's going so fast now that we can't even keep up. But to me, it's a great feeling.
Yeah. What are some of the key skills and qualifications necessary for someone pursuing a career in IT today?
What I'll tell you in full transparency, back in the days, you really had to have, and forget somebody's riding their motorcycle. You really had to have you had to have a degree, right? To get into the IT arena. But nowadays, there is so much with, YouTube and all of these channels that teach you about technology that in all seriousness, you can get educated just by watching YouTube now. You know what I mean? So the landscape has changed dramatically to the point where you might find an opportunity where all you need is an understanding of coding, which you can literally learn online for free, right? So I'm just keeping it real to all the users. I mean, all the listeners. There is no excuse not to be able to be gainfully employed in this economy with technology, because you don't need to go to school for 4 years. I know a lot of people preach 4-year degrees and all that stuff. I think I needed that to break into that arena at that time. But, whether you're black or white, color creed, whatever you may be, or whatever nationality you are, if you know how to code, I mean, you're in, right? And I don't code, right? So I know we're going to talk about that, but I would just say when it comes to what you really need nowadays, based on the sector that I'm in, you need to have great customer service skills, because I'm front facing, right? I'm not in the back end with all the coding and, all the programming. There are some users or people that are in that arena where that's what they do. They're kind of like lab rats, they're in the back, they're doing their thing, and you never see them. But for that, you don't need a college degree. You just need to understand how technology works and how the company that you're looking to work for needs it implemented. So whether you are looking to be a consultant, once again, you could be a consultant and get paid, via what they call 1099, not a W-2. Shout outs to Mike Greenwich. He was one of the people who really put me on to that 1099 aspect of billing myself out, right? But once again, even though I had a college degree, nowadays you can start your own DBA, you can get some coding under your belt, and you can render your services to other companies right now like that, and they will pay. So, I would say at the end of the day, you don't need a college degree. You just need an understanding of technology and I would say a passion to excel in the field. Excellent.
Yeah, because that college, you got to get that return on investment. And that's 4 years that you might not have been able to earn income because you went to school to do some things that with a little research and time management, you can teach yourself.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things for me, brother. I'm thankful that I have my degree. Tim, my son, he just graduated from Penn State. He has his degree. But there are certain fields, in my opinion, that you just don't need a degree nowadays, right? It's just what it is. The culture has changed. Back in the days, our parents were like, go to school, get a good job, and do X, Y, and Z. Now, I could be a YouTuber in technology. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it.
100%, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then with the gig economy, you could do Upwork, you could do Fiverr. So you could put yourself out there to the world and do gigs and charge what you feel like you're worth charging. So yeah, different landscape.
E-commerce is amazing right now, bro. I mean, obviously you know it as well as I know. I mean, you have certain people that are starting up in e-commerce that are dwarfing what people make in corporate America. Mm-hmm. It's just the nature of the land right now, the landscape of how things are changing. Which is great.
It gives everybody opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. Could you share any challenges or obstacles you encountered along your career path in IT?
Well, I think like most people, and I'm just keeping it real. Like at times, I think for a certain period of time, and it's still obvious now, the presence of Afro-Americans in technology is limited, right? I mean, you kind of think back in the days when a lot of our peers were going to school. What school were they going to? Bronx Community Science, Manhattan, Brooklyn Tech. The majority of those people were Asian, right? And Caucasian. And it's not to knock it. It was just what the footprint was and what people were looking for at that point in time. But now, when you just think about just where we are, the landscape is wide open. But I still feel that the challenge is, having people understand what your worth is. Right? Because I'm keeping it real. Like, you look at how, and I think there was a statistic that said, women make 80 cents on the dollar compared to a man just because they're a woman, right? And when you look at it in the landscape of technology, I mean, I know people that are, Caucasian, that are males, that are trumping other people's salary, and they have no, huge skill set. It's just that they're Caucasian and they're male. Right. So I think some of the things that I battled with initially was that race card. And now, even though I think the landscape has definitely leveled where the opportunity is there, so there's no excuse, I think one of the biggest things right now is understanding what your worth is and people willing to pay you for your worth. Right. Bro, we are approaching our 50s. Actually, we're in our 50s. I'm in my 50s. Right. And I've come to realize, even in my 50s, that I was shortchanging myself. I was shortchanging myself. Like, I'm now seeing things like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, money that is on another level for the field that I'm in. It just depends on what sector you're in. So we can talk about that a little later. Absolutely.
Okay. And so how did you overcome these hurdles that you witnessed earlier?
You know what? I think I thought about where I would like to be. And I think this kind of comes from my coaching regimen that I've obviously morphed into over the years. But, one, it's about connecting with people, collaborating, and creating the roadmap that you feel you deserve or want in your life. So for me, I realized, and being fully transparent, even though I had some battles with male counterparts that may have been Caucasian, what I realized was they had something that I needed. And I had to now meet them halfway to join forces and collaborate. And once I realized at the end of the day that when people are making money and they're successful, they're usually not hating from the sidelines. It's just that you lack the awareness that they're about their business and you're caught up in a different realm,
Excellent.
So for me, I think I had to really develop that awareness of I got to collaborate with some of these individuals and break bread and share that knowledge and then be able to stand on my own when the opportunity was presented to myself.
All right. So I'm hearing my takeaway is self-awareness, evaluating the landscape, thinking things out, getting out of your feelings.
Oh, definitely getting out of your feelings. Because, I mean, listen, one thing I will say nowadays for the millennials, they have no problem talking about their compensation.
Oh, yeah.
In corporate America, they're like, shh, don't tell people how much you make. I mean, nowadays, it's an open scale. And I think for many people, when you start to hear those numbers outside, you're like, well, wait a minute. So it's real. It's real.
Yeah. How do you stay up to date with the latest technologies and trends in your field?
Social media, right? I mean, it's keeping it 100%. Social media is everywhere, bro, right? So if I want to learn the latest trend, I know somebody's selling it online now. Back in the days, it was more like, okay, you had to go to, what they used to call it, the Microsoft TechNet, right?
Yeah.
That was back in the days where you had DVD or CDs and they had like 30 CDs and you would pop them in your CD-ROM drive and, go through the course.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people are talking about ways to improve your productivity through Excel, through artificial intelligence. People are talking about how to learn coding, within, 3 to 6 months. And that's all obviously a sale of the e-commerce sector, but it's still talking about the latest trends. So if you want to be knowledgeable about what's going on, you don't really have to look far. I still love the library. It's quiet. You can get your read on. You don't need, back in the days, the Britannica encyclopedia. Right? I'm just keeping it real. All you need is a cell phone, a tablet, and access to the internet. And it's just, and it's funny. I'm so glad that you are having me on this, because even as I'm speaking to you about it, I'm realizing how blessed I am. Like, the information that we're gathering right now is so easy to obtain, as opposed to before we have to knock down the door. So, latest trends to me, social media, being able to still network with individuals, right? But it's almost like this. When you look at a Facebook, put out, I guess, or bought Oculus, the goggles that, you put on. And now look, Apple got their goggles there, right? It's all trendy. It's like being an Apple fan, right? If you're an Apple fan, it's just trendy. But the trends usually transform to revenue. So the more you're engaged with that aspect of, what's trendy, you can easily capitalize on, as long as you can make a video and, go out there and educate others about, the trend that's coming out.
Yeah. So related to that, because, we've been in corporate America where things are really structured. You want training, they send you out. You go to this location, you might stay a day or two. So when you want to stay on top of what's trending, you learn something and bring it to your team and say, hey, the whole team needs to learn this? Or you just basically get familiar with it, so it's in your toolbox, and that'll be that in case it comes up? Like, what's the mindset to the learning the new up-to-date of something?
It's funny as you're saying that, whether or not you kind of keep it to yourself or you involve the team. The reality now is the information is flowing so fast and it's out there for everyone to grab. Once again, being the person to collaborate with others is the goal, is the thing of value nowadays, right? So if I learn something new online, I don't keep it to myself. I think about how I can implement that within a work structure in corporate America where it's structured to be beneficial to the people that I support. And after that, it's just more like, hey, what do you think about this? And everyone's going to go through their what they call it, RFP, or request for proposal, and be able to really understand what it's serving as far as, productivity and things of that nature. But once again, the information is there. It's just more saying, hey, I have a problem. This solves the problem. How do we implement it? The name of the game nowadays is automation. There's no secret about it. More and more people need to understand that things are being automated at an excelling rate, that at the end of the day, it don't matter whether or not you have it to yourself. Somebody else is going to know about it very soon. It's just what it is.
Yeah. Now, when you say automation, right, that makes me think a bot or something can replace a person. So are you seeing that in your field, or that's far off because you're always going to need the people? Like, you know what I'm saying? Is your position something that you got to keep an eye on for being replaced by a machine or not?
No, absolutely. There is no doubt about it, and especially with now AI in the arena, right? You got to watch your back, right? I mean, you really have to. I mean, obviously there are different sectors in IT, right? And just to bring up a few, obviously you could be into networking, you could be into desktop support, where you're working on everything that the user interfaces with. Networking, you could be in the background and just understanding how one computer talks to another. You could be in security. Security is huge now. Cybersecurity, oh my gosh, like just another level. And it doesn't take a lot to learn it. Let me just make sure I'm emphasizing that to anyone who's listening to this podcast. It's just really about understanding how the technology now connects to it. And let's say, for me, maybe I would be fearful as a desktop support technician that I'm interacting with a user face to face. One thing is some of the things that I perform in my day-to-day activities can be replaced by a bot or automated. But the goal is to understand how do you automate it, so now you shift from the person that they see to the person that's creating the automation. So you really have to be mindful of the fact that, yes, it's a moving target. Can you be replaced? Absolutely. I mean, you go into your local supermarket, there are not that many cashiers now.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so, but if you think about it, can I somehow become efficient in coding that I provide the program for the supermarkets that use the machines?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's all in the difference of opinion and how you see it. Absolutely. So you got to
one eye on the vision, one eye on tomorrow while you're dealing with today.
Yeah. And it's listen, I'm not going to say it's here right now, but it's obvious, right? I do remember maybe about a year and a half ago working with a couple of C-suite individuals. I was doing a Zoom call with them, and it's kind of way Zoom even started like taking off because of the pandemic. And they were talking about the investment side where these quant machines, quant computing, is able to calculate and pick stocks better than humans. So you think about that, might not need a stockbroker, might not need an investment banker, right? So now these things come into play, but can you now shift your thinking to still be in that landscape in IT? So
keep you on your toes at minimum.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you walk us through your process for troubleshooting a technical issue?
Sure. So let's just say hypothetically someone, and once again, coming from a desktop support situation, I'll give you one that I kind of just went through. So a lot of times when people are working remote, they have a number of ways they connect, right? They can connect through what they call Citrix, which is more of like a virtual machine that they can connect from anywhere from their PC to the PC at work. They could remote what they call RDP, and they could remote desktop protocol into their PC directly at work through a web browser. So in this case, there was a user who was saying, "Hey, Tim, I'm unable to connect." Now, once again, you got to think about some of the users that you're interacting with, right? Because some users are well-informed, some are not so well-informed, right? But once again, that intangible that you need to have as a desktop support person is to understand, let me put their shoes on. I can't speak from a standpoint of a tech specialist. I got to understand where they're coming from. So from this individual, he was like, I can't connect. So I'm like, okay, are you using your laptop VPN to tunnel into the network, or are you using a personal PC at home to Citrix in? And his response was, Citrix is not working. So I'm like, okay. So I'm walking him through it, but he's getting frustrated, I can tell. And he's like, listen, I can't get into my Citrix. My laptop is working, but I can't get into Citrix. So I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't you just use your laptop? If your laptop is working. But then as I walked him through this process, I said, so wait a minute, you're telling me that your laptop works, but Citrix is not working. Still a disconnect, because if one is working, the other is not. Why don't you just use what's working? Make sense? He then says to me, Tim, every time I connect, I use my laptop to remote into my PC at work, and I can't connect. Okay, so now you're telling me your laptop works, but you can't connect to the PC in the office. 9 times out of 10, the PC in the office is turned off because you can't connect to it, right? But once again, they didn't understand, trying to break that down. So I had to walk through with them the awareness to say, how far do you need to go now to achieve this goal? And that is to connect to the PC in the office. So as soon as he said that to me, I'm like, oh, no problem. Let me check with somebody in security to see if we can get your PC turned on or if it's off. Lo and behold, security goes, checks at his desk, the PC is off. As soon as he powered the PC on, his laptop was working, but the RDP session was down because the connection at work was powered off.
Yeah.
As soon as he powered on the PC, he was able to RDP into his machine. Solved. But, the hard part about that was understanding where he was coming from and how he tried to connect.
Yeah.
Right now, rightfully so, as a tech, maybe well versed with his scenario or his setup, maybe I should have been a little bit more intuitive to say, hey, this gentleman always RDPs into his machine. But when he started the conversation, the dialogue, it was via text.
Yeah. Oh.
Obviously, lost in translation with the tech.
Yeah.
We're not talking on the phone. I'm not remoted into his machine, so I don't know what's going on. So I think from a tech standpoint, when it comes to being able to triage these issues, I believe the more you can communicate with the person via phone or video, the better off you are. But when you're dealing with a lot of what they call C-suite individuals, they don't got time to get on the phone with you. They're just going to shoot you a text. I can't connect.
Okay.
Now you got to be the one to triage in the background and maybe do a little bit of digging before you even respond to them. And then that's how, as a desktop support specialist, you kind of get ahead of the game because you're more aware of some of the things or the nuances that they do day in and day out, but they're not paying attention to.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because I think you guys will not be replaced because people that specialize have no time to figure the other thing out. They have no interest. Right. I make money for the company. I'm good at this thing. Get me online so I can do what I do. So
absolutely.
In part, I kind of think you guys, because of your personality, and I know you're going to walk somebody through and they're going to be like, oh, thank you, Tim.
Right.
I think you guys, the good ones like yourself, will not be replaced because they need to speak to someone.
Yes.
Specialists specialize. You know what I mean? I play football. I'm an athlete. I need to train and play football. I can't worry about this. I can't worry about that. Right. I need to worry about this. And you support people that make a lot of money for the company and they have no interest in dealing with a bot or this, that, and the other. So for that, in my mind, I think, because I know you and the quality of your service, I think you per se would not be replaced because that personal, just hook it up, bro. I don't need short order, net, like get me back online.
Right. No, but that, and you're absolutely right. And one, I appreciate that. Thank you for, sending me some flowers. I think it's really about understanding nowadays, it's about the relationship you have with your client, right? It could be the relationship you have as a guidance counselor with your, the children that you are now guiding, right? It could be the relationship that you have as a banker. You're constantly reaching out to them, even when there's turmoil in the market. You're not hiding behind the scenes, right? So I think it's all about creating those small wins. And when you get those small wins, you build trust, you build awareness, but you also build a track record. So obviously, technology, we could be on this Zoom right now, and guess what? The internet can go down, right? When stuff goes down, they know you're in their corner. So the more you can really be that advocate, letting them know like, hey, even when things go bad, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be the face. I'm going to take the heat, but I'm going to support you still. People value that. So when you said specialist, that brings value where, we're marketable to a certain dollar figure. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think whatever age group that's coming up that talks less could be hampered by the lack of communication in a sense, because people's skills are never outdated. People, if you and I have the same resume, but you have people's skills and the other person doesn't, the person might as well have not known anything because they can't communicate it.
Yeah.
So, I would like young people that's watching this, listening to this, to work on their communication skills, writing, speaking, being patient in how to explain something, because I'm in the school system and the writing is not what it needs to be. People are not reading as much as they used to read. Yeah. And so that's something to consider. Tell us about a time that you couldn't figure something out and the person you were helping gave you a hard time.
Bro, that's almost every day. Listen, I will say this. When you're dealing with, VIPs, right? And that's the blessing that I've been gifted with at this time, is to work with mostly C-suite individuals, right? Executives that obviously don't have time and their patience is short and things of that nature. There are numerous times where I will be working on something and the individual will not allow me to work on it. What do I mean by like, oh, Tim, I have a problem for the past 6 months or let's say 6 days, I could not print. And I need to get these reports printed because I'm going into these meetings and I have no hard copies, right? But every time I try to get to your desk, you're like, I'm too busy. Now, it makes sense, but it's counterproductive for me to jump on your machine and help you out when you're saying, not now. I come back, not now. So I think, in this instance, I remember supporting this individual, very well known as someone who is just by the book, will ring the bell, alarm bell. The world's on fire because she can't get something done. And lo and behold, I just got on the phone with her one day and it was just a bad day for her, which translated to a bad day for me, where she, every time I tried to say something to calm the situation, she was like, I don't got time for that. I don't want to hear it. Fix it. Now, it's a difference when somebody tells you to fix it and they walk away, but they're literally hovering over you. Now, you could feel people watching you and you're like, is it fixed yet? It's like a child. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And I will say for this instance, I was a bit rattled because I knew it was escalating to a point where she might now go to the higher ups. This is a problem. It's not being solved. So obviously you don't want that heat. Your job as a desktop support specialist is to make sure that your manager does not have to hear from you at all throughout the whole day. And when they don't have to hear from you, that's a beautiful thing, And I was at the point where, okay, this is going to blow up. And it blew up, right? But here's where it really blew up. She was so upset that she cursed me out. Now, look, desktop support specialists, look, you at times will come across people that are like disrespectful. They're making money, the pressure bust pipes, But I got to the point where I couldn't solve it. And I realized I could not solve this issue at the moment because I had to do some more back end work. And I got the raw end of, her personality at that time, cursed me out, said she's going to the top on this. This is nonsense. I'm incompetent, and it was like, my sincere apologies. I'm going to still work on this. I'll let you know. She's like, I don't even want you touching it now. Don't touch my machine. Right. So obviously I'm getting beat up and, I had to take a loss. But the first thing I did was I informed my manager of the interaction I had. Right. I didn't complain too much about her cursing me out, but it was just more the fact that, she was very unprofessional. She was under the gun, and she just wasn't trying to hear anything I had to say. So I took a loss, right? She hung up on me. So I failed at that, right? I couldn't, as a desktop support specialist that is gifted in customer service, white glove service, to bring that person down and solve the problem when it matters most.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that, but ironically, after she cursed me out, I don't want to go too deep because they could probably identify who it is, but somebody encouraged her to apologize, in which she did the day after, but you know what? We're still friends to this day, but I do understand when the pressure's on, you got to perform.
Yeah. I mean, everybody responds differently to pressure. And so that wasn't her best day.
Yeah, it wasn't her best day. Absolutely. Right. I always think of, I'm not sure if you ever saw the movie Crash. Yeah. Right. And, it's like, it just wasn't the best day. Like you had everything lined up that was like, I'm going to take you down. You're not going to win today. You're not going to win. And I feel like sometimes a lot of VIPs, they have this, this crash moment, and they're just like, unfortunately, you're the face, so you're in front of it.
Yeah. How do you prioritize and manage multiple projects at once?
Do you want me to give you the politically correct answer? Do you want me to give you the real answer?
The real.
Sometimes you really have to throw people under the bus. And what do I mean by that is because when you start to climb this ladder and people are looking at you to get results, for me per se, I'm very, I'm kind of that individual who doesn't like to see people lose. I don't like to see people fail. So if I have a couple of people reporting to me and they're not producing, I'm usually trying to jump in to save the day. And for me, when it comes to multiple things or handling them, you have to delegate, right? So that if you're not delegating effectively, then everything's falling on you. And for me, keeping it real, that was something I was terrible at. And the only way it started to change for me was I had to get written up a couple of times. Like for not finishing projects or not meeting deadlines and things of that nature. But also realizing the people that I was interacting with to kind of finish some of the stuff that I needed, I then had to come to the realization that I can't cover for them. And it was only in myself. So I had to do the self-reflection. So when it comes to that ability to, handle multiple things now, once again, is that word again, automation. Automation is a gift because now there are certain things that I would do manually on a regular basis that I can write a quick script for, and it does it automatically. So in the technology arena, scripting helps. Even though I'm not a fan of it that much, I'm not really gifted at it, but I know when I have to do it, it supports, a certain function in what other people need from me, running reports automatically instead of clicking on 3 or 6 buttons and going through this spreadsheet, cutting and pasting and then sending to them. It's like, no, automate that, send it to them. They need it, send. That's it. Gotcha. So yeah, but for me, it was just understanding I had to automate more. And then at the same time, really be transparent with my team and say, if you're not cutting the mustard, I got to throw you under the bus. And unfortunately, some people have lost their jobs because of that. But it was just a reality of, what I had to do. Not to say I was doing it purposely, because I don't want to take people's mouth, but I want to be productive.
Yeah. Can you give an example of a successful project you completed and explain your role in it?
So on the technology side, there's different things that I do day in and day out. And there was one project that was geared towards telephony, right? So the desktop phones that are on people's desk, right? A lot of times now you might see, you go into a corporation, you see Cisco phones on the desk. You might see Ivana phones or Polycom systems in the office. And I was tasked at that time to upgrade the entire system because the other system was being phased out. So they usually call that end of life, right? So, you think of Windows 7, right? That's end of life. When Windows 7 got to the point where it's like, we're going to Windows 10, whether you like it or not, we're not supporting it. Same thing with the phones. So for me, that was quite evident. Ooh, I think my laptop. Hold on. And bear with me, brother. I'm just gonna,
Sure.
See, that's technology for you, brother. That's technology for you. Okay. So I saw the battery popping. Like, you better get the popping. So, So working on the and let me be fully transparent. I don't mean to interrupt right now, but even on the technology side, what I just went through, what you just witnessed, as a technology specialist, you should be ahead of the curve on that. Like, I shouldn't have to get up and plug in a laptop. I'm just keeping it real. Like, I'm always willing to teach people some of the things that I know I mess up on, right? So, one, that's not professional, it's not courteous, but I thank you for your grace and, extending the grace on that. So my apologies, y'all. But yeah, back to the phone situation. Long story short, they asked me to upgrade the phone system. So it was more about me being able to collect all the information that these users use on their phone. So you got speed dials, you got VIPs who have assistants that manage 3 to 4 different people. So the phone rings on one line and then bounces to another line. They pick up. So it was all about understanding the logistics of how we're going to move everyone over, what model we prefer to use, and now what are the latest features, right? So I was tasked to just identify what the features were, what would be beneficial for the firm, but at the same time, develop a blueprint, or if you want to call it kind of like a playbook on how to support it after the phones are deployed. So I had to, really go from soup to nuts to be able to identify the phones that we wanted, to then work with the vendor to get them sent to us. In the IT arena, most of the time, you don't just kind of go one big swoop with everything. You do it in phases, right?
Okay.
So I got like 5 or 6 phones, and I started working on them individually with what they call test users or power users, right? People that use the phone a lot and saying, hey, would you be willing to test this phone as, we kind of work out the kinks.
Gotcha.
And, had some test users, and they started to, implement certain things and then give me feedback to say, hey, Tim, I like this feature. I don't like this feature. This doesn't work. They said this works. It doesn't. So now it's all about the documentation of what's working, what's not, what's beneficial for this group, because obviously there are different people who use phones for different reasons. One thing just in particular would be what they call like a single number reach, meaning if I programmed the phone and it was sitting on my desk and it rang 5 times, I could then say, instead of 5 times, because I don't want someone to be waiting five rings, let's put it to 2. If I don't pick up in 2 rings, forward it to my cell phone. If it doesn't, if you get my cell phone and I don't pick up, send it back for 1 ring and then record a message. So that's some of the automation that would come and play with, let's say a desktop phone, a Cisco phone, so to speak. And those are some of the things that I implemented, along with like a profile that identifies if what they call hoteling, meaning if someone had an office space and there was 20 people there, but they were all hoteling, they didn't have an actual assigned desk. They just had the ability to say, I need this desk for that day. I could then set what they call a hotel profile that they plug in on the phone, and then all their speed dials load up on the phone, like it's been their phone. So those were kind of some of the things that I was tasked to do. And as I got all logistics straightened out with the vendor about that, they implemented a good part of it because that's still back-end programming. But I had to coordinate those efforts, then schedule a deployment schedule where it was like, we're going to deploy to the accounting firm the week of the 21st. We're going to deploy to the investment firm.
Oh, gotcha.
And now we stagger those deployments. And once again, we're still checking to make sure everything's working. Now, once everything is done, we then, and this is very important as a technologist, then you give the technology to the VIPs. You give the technology to the VIPs first. They're last. Because you worked out the kinks.
All the bugs,
that broke. This person tested this. They gave us this information. So, once again, when you are supporting, an entire community of users, you have to understand who the players are. Not to say who are the guinea pigs, but who are the people willing to help you get to that next level.
Gotcha.
Regards to the deployment. So
I
successfully completed that. It took maybe about 4 to 6 months because we had polycoms to put in conference room. So it was about 4 to 6 months, but we deployed about maybe about 90 phones, about 20 polycoms in conference room. So, but it was all successful. Knock on wood, it was great. So I got some love on it.
Good. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing IT professionals today, and how do you stay prepared to face it?
I think we touched on this. I think a lot of times when people are in technology, they lose that sense of personal touch. Because, it's the computer talking, right? It's the bot talking. We call for our balance at the bank. It's automated, right? There's no personal touch most of the time when these things are repetitive in nature. And I think when specialists, whether you're coding, whether you're desktop support, whether you're networking, and it comes to now interacting with a human, you're totally lost in translation. Because when you speak to them, you're usually speaking to them in machine language, and you're asking them brief questions. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? And, it's like a lot of people in the arena, they're actually bothered by that. Meaning like the technology specialists, they don't want to talk to people. They're like, you're a pain in the butt. They don't want to talk to people. So unfortunately, I think there's a lack of emotional intelligence when it comes to a lot of technologists. The people that are out there on the forefront that are interfacing with the clients, they get that. So you do have people that bridge that, but still there are times when people that come into the fold and they need to explain something, they're very short in their explanation because they're like, this is what it does. That's it. Now to a VIP, that might make sense, But to people that are in operations that do the day in and day out, they want to know how this affects their workflow. And if their workflow is affected, now you have a problem.
Yeah,
I think it's really about the communication.
Communication, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Because we've all went to a doctor that explained a little bit more on why something is affected in your body. And we also went to the doctor that took 5 minutes to boom, boom, bap and get us out of here and be like, what just happened? So, right. Yeah, so we all can relate to that. The
terrible bedside manners.
Yeah.
Terrible bedside manners. Absolutely. Yeah. Same thing on the IT side. Terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As an IT professional, what are some of the most rewarding aspects of your job?
When you get the personal thank yous. You know, for me, I take a lot of pride in being that face, right? In the face, a lot of times you get shot first, right? You get all the drama, right? And when you just get, you know, a word of praise from, and I'm not going to say that it has to be VIPs. It's just anyone that says, you know what, I see you, I appreciate what you do. To me, that's what makes it worth it. Just to be able to know that I'm adding value. Yeah. You know, and then the technology, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, people here's the reality. Technology is an expense. I had a hard time dealing with this originally, where when you look at technology, you would think like, I'm keeping the lights on. Like, you're getting emails, you're getting your Office 365 to your desktop. You should be thankful. No, that is all an expense when it comes, it's a capital expenditure when it comes to corporate America. So they're always looking to cut costs as quick as possible. And it's like, y'all really don't understand the value here. So to get just a thank you, I appreciate you, great job, that goes a long way for me.
Yeah. This is like a man versus machine. You're the human against the machine, and you bring us some humility, some human personal touch to it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely, bro.
I think I know some of the answers for this, but what advice would you give to someone who is considering a career in IT? The specific steps or recommendations you would suggest for getting started in the field?
I would say, and there's a framework that I use in my coaching for this, but I think it applies to the same thing. And it's about understanding, can you identify maybe 5 people in different aspects, in different sectors of technology, right? So once again, coding, desktop support, networking, security, programming, right? Different programs, right? And when I say different program, like it could be C#, it can be Java, whatever it is, right? But identify that individual and model what they do or ask what they do. I think when people look at technology, they just say, I want to make a lot of money, right? It's like, yeah, technology will pay you a lot of money, but there's different sectors. So you have to be able to identify what sector you want to be in. And when I say sector, not only as far as, let's say, I want to be in desktop support, but now what sector? Is it law? Is it finance? Is it marketing? Is it advertising? Because that shifts the dynamic of how much you're going to get paid. So a lot of people, when they think of technology, they just say, oh, I want to do desktop support. Guess what? Yes, desktop support pays different in New York than they do in Pennsylvania. But also, if you are looking for a desktop support role, 9 times out of 10, if you are looking to work for a nonprofit organization, you're not going to get paid, right? You're just not.
Yeah. Perfect.
You might be able to use that as a stepping stone to then get to that next level, which I'm all for. But right out the gate, you're not going to get paid, right?
Gotcha.
So I think the steps are to identify what other people are doing and then identify, is that your lane of genius that you would like to model? Next, I think you should be aware of the fact of how long does it take to get to a certain level in that field, right? Because you can get a certification like that nowadays, but that doesn't mean somebody's going to hire you or pay you six figures. You have to show some track record, right? So I think understanding the I want to call it the timeline swing from you going from, let's say 75,000 to 100,000. How long does that take? What does it involve? And once again, this is all research. This is not, I'm going to go do it and then see what it is. You'd want to do this research. And then I would say the last thing is to now try it in what they would call like a lab, a safe environment. And nowadays with technology, there are a lot of things you can emulate in a work environment on a test PC. You don't need to spend all this money to buy a laptop. You can, and I'm just saying this for people that are not aware, you can seriously go on to Microsoft and learn Azure, which is a platform that Microsoft uses all over the world. And they literally give you, as long as you have an internet connection, they give you the platform to use online for free. So I think it's about understanding what's available to you as resource, right? It all boils down to research at this time and not, jumping out saying I got to spend all this money for stuff. So that's why I love technology. Yeah. Because there's almost everything in this world right now that you could get for free as a try and buy and then see if you like it or not.
Yeah, that's excellent. And that's why I do the podcast, because I want to be a resource for people to research so that they don't go down this lane and waste time and waste money, because information is invaluable. And if I knew this, and I was blessed enough to listen to the Tim Hunte interview and be like, oh, I ain't even think of that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we here, because we want to help people be more efficient and think about what they would not have thought about originally. So yeah, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, no, absolutely, bro. I mean, like I said, I'm at this point, I'm still standing on Mike Greenwich's shoulders, right? I'm shouting him out again. Like, without Mike, he showed me so many things, and then he helped me leapfrog certain things and avoid certain things, change my rate, how much I want to charge people. I'm like, I wouldn't have never known that. So for you to be doing this podcast, bro, it's so important to be able to utilize the technology. You're on a podcast, right? It's like somebody can be listening to this on the way to work. They can be working at a supermarket and learn or hear this, and they now realize they can go online with an internet connection, even from their phone, create an Azure account through Microsoft, learn coding, learn security, learn support of this platform, and go there in the next couple of months and make six figures.
Yeah. And your 2 decades plus of experience is a blessing, because now you're going to give people food for thought. So I think.
Oh, absolutely. And bro, I mean, to show and realize how fast technology is changing and at the rate that they're paying people. I mean, literally, even though I was making good money as a desktop support specialist then and in technology, now double, sometimes triple, right? Coming right out the gate, as long as you learn a certain skill set in technology, and you're good.
Yeah. Are there any specific areas or specialties within the IT field that you find particularly interesting or promising for future professionals, and why?
Hands down, cybersecurity is ridiculous.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. Like, and if I felt like I wanted to pivot to that, could I pivot right now, even at the age that I'm at, even though I'm in desktop support? Absolutely. I can pivot to that, right? It's just about understanding how can I now use that skill set where I'm currently working, leverage it, and then move to another department after I've implemented what I've learned. But yeah, cybersecurity is one. Coding. I mean, everyone is teaching people how to code for free.
Yeah.
I mean, and yes, there are some institutions that you still pay and they kind of line you up with jobs. That's all good, right? I'm not knocking their hustle. But from coding to, security, cybersecurity, I would also say, and this is new, right? I'm what they call C-level suite support.
Say that again?
C-level suite support.
C-level. Okay.
And pretty much what that means is I'm not working with the entire firm. I'm only working with the C-suite individuals on a desktop side. And the gift of that is And this is for people, once again, who have, I would say, great personalities. They like to be on the go. They don't like to be cooped up in an office, right? Because what the C-suite executive support person does now is they interact with the big dogs. And I mean, work and home. So you even get exposure to people's homes in regards to what they're doing. And I'm not just saying to be nosy. I'm saying like you can now go to someone's home that lives in the Hamptons and set up their entire network as a C-suite support person. And the beauty of that is now you're learning all sorts of technology, but at the same time, you're seen as a valuable resource, because when people say, oh, Tim, you know, I'm looking to identify, you know, the latest upgrade in Sonos, right? You know, what's going on with Sonos, or what's going on with Bose, right? You're now looked upon as a resource where you can really implement certain things that create automation, obviously sound, technology at home, automation, things of that nature. So C-suite is an up-and-coming field that many people, and I'm telling you, many people do not know nothing about. The only caveat to that is this. You definitely have to have some experience, right? C-suite, you're not going to be able to just go in and support an executive. You're going to probably have to work at a location where you now start, you know, in operations. You can support these individuals over time, and then you build a track record. So that's the only caveat. You can't go and learn that online and then come back and say, I'm a C-suite support. You know, it's just what it is, right? But that's what makes us special. That's what makes us valuable. So that, you know, but I would say those three things are great now. Coding, cybersecurity, executive suite support.
Yeah, amen. Thank you.
For sure.
What are some common misconceptions about working in IT, and are there any stereotypes you encountered?
I would say misconceptions, even coming from a user standpoint, that it's difficult, right? It's really not difficult. You pick a sector of what you want to get involved with. You learn about it. You implement it. You test it over and over. Test it over and over, and you get used to it. It's very symbolic, in my opinion, to being a doctor, right? You go to your doctor. You say, you know, the doctor, what's the first question the doctor says? What brings you in today? What's going on? Right? I mean, you know, that's what the doctor says. How you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
Same thing with your PC. How you doing? What's going on with
yeah, what's up?
Right? And what you do is you now walk them through a number of things that you've been feeling or experiencing. The same thing on the IT side. I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm not able to do this because of X. Okay. So now, from what you told me, you've now allowed me to triage what you're experiencing, and that workflow then identifies, you know, a certain path that I can now assess. And with that, what really comes into play when we talk about misconceptions is the fact that people think that that's difficult. It's just the fact that there's no reps in your life to do it. You don't, as they say, repetition is the father of learning. Every time, I cannot tell you how many times people come to me now, they talk about something, oh, I can't print. The first thing I do is the printer, right? I mean, it's a simple thing, but is it on? Okay, it's on. Okay. Is the USB cable plugged into the printer? Right? Oh, it's wireless? Is your Wi-Fi working? Right? So these are things but when you say it to an individual, they're like, oh my God, this makes sense. Thank you so much. You're so smart. And I'm really transparent. I'm like, no, I just seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
That's all. So I think the misconception for many people that are fearful of technology is the fact that one, it doesn't work. It's hard. I'm going to look like a fool. I don't want to be found out. No. I think one of the amazing things that Apple does as a supplier of iPhones or iPads, they have these classes that you can literally go in and just learn every day at Apple. Huge. It reduces the playing field to say, you're not going to have to call Apple all the time now because now you know how to do it. So I think it's lowering the, if you want to call it, you know, just lowering the playing field to open up that awareness to say it's not difficult. So I think that's the biggest misconception that people say. It's difficult.
Got you. The salary guide I found online was $97,000 to a little over $200,000. Is this accurate?
It's accurate based on the sector once again, right?
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
Like and so I would say for what you just brought up, right, that would probably line up in New York City, working for maybe a bank, maybe a prestigious law firm. You're not going to get that working, at CUNY, as a desktop support specialist.
No, I got you. Makes sense.
Right?
Makes sense.
It's just not happening. So that range is valid for what I just kind of broke down. But I will, and I'm so serious when I say this, like, there are certain opportunities out there that dwarf those numbers right now. Dwarf them. Like, and I would say, in transparency, not even in New York, Miami is bubbling right now. Like, for me living in Pennsylvania, I wouldn't be able to probably find that salary. I might be able to get close to the 90s, right? But, I would probably have to be there a number of years and have all sorts of, accolades and degrees and stuff of that nature to kind of even get to the six figures for Pennsylvania. But Miami nowadays, that number that you just threw out, cakewalk. So it's there. I mean, you're looking at certain industries, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000.
Wow.
And it's there. I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, you even see it on YouTube nowadays, right? But, most of the time they're like selling a lot of stuff. But, when you've been in the field for a long time, you start to break bread with people who are doing certain things, and you realize, like, wow, you're literally making $500,000 doing certain things in technology, which is amazing nowadays.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, that's great. So we've come to our last question, but before we ask it, is there anything we didn't go over that you would like to share?
I would say, I think the biggest thing when people think about technology, and I kind of alluded to it, but it's just to understand that technology is your friend. I know a lot of people now talking about AI and it's replacing certain things. You could look at the Terminator and be like, are we really going to the Terminator level with AI and stuff of that nature? There's some fear and there's some realities that could develop into that, but it's all about, in my opinion, benefiting the planet that we live on, right? So I would say, for anyone that's listening to this podcast, make technology your friend. Just make technology your friend. It has no. I might be short-lived when I say this, but I was going to say it has no feelings. AI is coming around, so it might have some feelings after a while. But I would say just make technology your friend.
Yeah. When you said make technology your friend, I thought about an older gentleman from my church that I saw recently. He's like in his 80s and he had an iPhone 14. He's maneuvering super easy. And I was really impressed because I get agitated at any new tech that I gotta learn. Sometimes I'm like, why does this work? Why I have to do this, to do this, to do this? And he's just moving around in the new 14. I'm like, that's dope. I was really impressed. But that's good. That made me think about him when you said that.
Yeah, make technology your friend, bro. It's there to help you. You just have to have some patience. Yeah, man. Yeah,
just lean in. So our last question is this. If you could text your younger self, what would you text and what age would that text be sent to?
Age? So I'm speaking for myself now, or am I speaking for the listeners or the youth?
No, you texting your younger self. What would you say to your younger self, and what age would you have sent that text to?
Okay, I would text it to myself at the age of 17, right? Because I'm now entering kind of like the high school arena and about to go to college to a certain degree, right? And I would text myself, I'm going to take a page out of Dr. A.R. Bernard. The only constant in life is change. And what I would then finish with that is to say, so is the world, and maintain your image. Just maintain your image, because the world will always conform to you as long as you maintain your image. whether that's in technology, whether it's in Christ, right? Maintain that image, and everything conforms around you. So that's the circle of influence, knowing that if your circle of influence is bigger than your circle of concern, you don't have to conform.
Okay. Dropping knowledge. I wonder if your 17-year-old self will be able to receive that.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? Because it's like, I look back at when I was 17, right? And if I was able to put on the text and be like, listen, this is the text I'm sending you because I'm now 52, right? Don't conform, right?
Got you.
Hold your image. And that image, obviously, from my standpoint, is the image of Christ. But it's about understanding that once you have that image inside you, that whatever happens, you still are maintaining that image. You can sleep better at night. You're not worried about this tossing and turning. You have that image in you that trumps everything else.
Yeah. I'm just giving you pushback because it was so wise and poignant. I was like, and now you describe it, and I'm like, all right, it makes sense if you say this beautiful quote and then describe it in this text.
Right. Because listen, let's keep it real. We've all been 17, right?
Yeah.
I was 17. What was I doing? I was in the streets. I was chasing ladies. I was running around driving all sorts of, trying to drive nice cars. And then, even though I'm blessed to be in the home that I'm in, I would do anything for someone to give me that knowledge now. So for the youth that's listening to this, I mean, it just doesn't stop with this podcast. Obviously, I know they can reach out to you, hit me up, right? I mean, you can look me up on social media. You need me to coach you on a couple of sessions. I'm more than willing to do it because now it is so important to be able to stand on somebody else's shoulders, bro.
Yes.
See above what other people can't see.
Amen. That's great. That's awesome. That's exactly what we're talking about. I'm going to put all your socials in the notes
Please,
of the podcast. So you're going to be good on the YouTube. I'm going to put all your contact information. So I thank you for this time. I thank you for taking out this time on a Friday from your family. I thank you for sharing with our listeners. I thank you for your wealth of knowledge and being transparent. I appreciate you. I wish you much success, nothing but love. And I'm excited to publish this podcast and share it with the world. And Godspeed.
Oh, man. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. I appreciate you. And for those that don't know, I'm putting it out there. I have to give him his flowers. This brother is such an integral part in my life. And even though we don't speak every day or every week, his love of God has transformed my thinking on such another level that it has blessed me with a foundation that I could not have had if I didn't have that relationship. So I'm just putting it out there. I thank you, brother. I love you like cooked food, bro. All right.
Godspeed. I'll talk to you later. Love to
brother. Blessings, family.
All right.
Bye.
Blessings. All right. Thank you for spending time with us. Please share, review, and subscribe now. Follow us on social media where we post new guest alerts and show recaps. All the information will be in the show notes. Thank you and be blessed.